It's not a question of whether the glass is half full or half empty. The question is, could the glass be a whole lot bigger? We've had some fantastic things emerge from just giving young people an opportunity to express themselves and grab a problem or a situation and do it their way. They don't have the baggage. They haven't had the rough edges ground off them by corporate compliance. They come in with incredibly open, honest assessments of things. As an employer, I feel it is my duty to give my people an opportunity to change their lives. It's not just to come to work and receive an hourly or a monthly remuneration. It's an opportunity to change their life.
Welcome to another episode of Waste to Wealth. Today I am joined by Ray. Ray, why don't you give us the TLDR on who you are and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. I'm currently the owner of Chi International Limited, which is the company behind a very long-standing brand of beverage in New Zealand, the Chi Herbal Drinks business brand. I've come into ownership of that after 2 or 3 decades of fairly structured blue chip sort of business experience, and I've ended up as the owner of it, and we're working away on some interesting opportunities for rejuvenation of an old business.
Oh, that's interesting. So have you always been an entrepreneur?
I started out in corporate life. I was in the late 80s, I was lucky enough to be recruited into a corporate cadetship program by the Watties business.
Right.
And I had a lot of privilege and training invested in me as part of that in the days when businesses did corporate and graduate cadetship programs. And I ended up being the person within the Watties marketing world who was put onto the projects where they wanted someone who would disrupt the status quo and bring the new. So I became the change agent inside corporate business.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And,
nice.
and so sort of, I suppose the jargon is entrepreneurship, but I wasn't quite given a pot of money and a discrete business to play with, but I was always the one allocated if there was a project which was outside of the routine, if it was innovation, new, breaking the mould and the rules, I ended up doing the work on it.
Yeah, cool. And while you were going through that experience, obviously you felt at home in that entrepreneurship kind of vibe within your role. Yeah. But were you thinking, one day I might do my own thing or build some equity?
It always had been part of the big plan.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always part of it was part of my big plan. And I suppose, as a young graduate, I figured out that it's highly unlikely as you grind your way to the top of the pyramid, the chances of getting to the pinnacle of the pyramid in that corporate environment, they're pretty tough. And so I figured out that at a relatively young age that at some point I would be out doing my own thing. And that was the aspiration from a very young age.
Yeah, okay. That was cool.
However, what was the missing link? The idea and probably the courage.
Okay. So you were kind of waiting for a light bulb moment.
You're waiting for the courage and the opportunity, I suppose, and working on knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Do you feel like that was a great path to take? Like, you kind of almost had an apprenticeship type role by the sounds of it, because a lot of those corporates really developed their leadership or perspective leadership, right? Back in the day, there were more kind of programs. Now, they've, especially over the last couple of years, have really disappeared. Graduates are finding it very difficult to actually find a place in a company, which is becoming a little bit of a problem, actually.
It's tough. I really feel for our young people. And I try really hard. And we just met one of our team members while Charlie was setting us up here. And we try really hard to give young graduates a break.
Yeah,
and give them the opportunities to grow and learn. I think it's an important thing to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So how long did you work at the Watties Group?
The potted version of my time, I spent about 5 years with Watties as a graduate learning the ropes. I worked on some real bedrock parts of the Watties business. I ran the marketing and product management for things like their infant feeding, for their baked beans, their spaghetti. I did some very interesting innovations as well for them. And then I left them after about 5 years and I went to the dairy board. Pre-Fonterra days. Yeah. And I went into the dairy board and spent 3 years in the Middle East working on consumer packaged brands for the New Zealand dairy industry in countries like the Yemen and Saudi Arabia and
that's such a cool
Jordan
experience.
and Syria. And so that was a fantastic experience to learn about marketing not being about yourself. Marketing is all about actually putting yourself in the shoes of the other person,
right?
Not yourself, not projecting your own frame of reference onto it. It's about understanding their frame of reference. And I'll tell you what, working in the Middle East, when you're working on products that go to a household which is run by an Islamic patriarchy, where decision making is quite different, and the expression of being a great set of parents based on what brand of milk powder you gave your kids every day, it was a fantastic place to learn about marketing to people, not marketing to yourself.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I spent some time there, came back to what was Heinz Watty. Heinz had bought the Watty's business, did some more time in quite structured business small business unit management, and had a little bit of a break into retail. I went into what was Progressive Enterprises, and I ran the merchandise team there for a couple of years, just to understand what goes on in the mind of retailers. Yeah. Because to most people in the supply community, it's a mystery. So I had some great opportunities there. Right. And then after that, I had a little period of time with Lion, advising them on change coming through in the sale of liquor bill. And this is in the end of the last century. It was 1988-ish. And then from there, I was hired by Frucor Beverages. Okay. At a time when they had just changed hands. They'd just gone from the Apple and Pear board to a consortium led by Pacific Equity Partners and the management, and a pair of Auckland entrepreneurs, Fires Wickham, and we worked on the Frucor business. I was in there for about 3 years. We took it from a $50 million acquisition to a $220 million IPO in 2.5 years. That's fun. And that gave me a taste for what can happen when you get it right. Right. That is a really interesting experience as well. Because I went in ostensibly as a corporate employee, as a corporate hire, and ended up in the midst of this management consortium with opportunities and working with a private equity investor who's the only questions that Pacific Equity ever asked us was, can you go faster? What can we give you? That is a really interesting process, especially going and listing. Yeah. And having that backing as well of the private equity guys. And that level of enthusiasm was just the most exhilarating thing to be exposed to. Yeah. Anyway, so that gave me a taste for what it could be if things got right. And after that, I probably stepped back and started looking for the opportunity. Yep. So after the business was floated and it spent a year on the in public ownership, and then Danone took it private, and that was the end of that management team. So I was out looking for opportunities. Yeah. And were you able to negotiate through that process some part of the equity that was, did you have skin in the game when it went public? Yeah. And that was part of the exhilarating thing, was joining a management team and being given a schedule of options and investing schedules and things like that, which was just, it was very exhilarating, and it kept us really focused as a management team on the real value in the business. Totally. I mean, the Acuity is actually a merge of equity and acuity. That's how we came up with the name. And it's kind of attached to our vision, where we believe that everyone has the right to build wealth for themselves and have the freedom to choose how they get there. And I really find entrepreneurship very interesting, putting yourself out there to negotiate for options and equity in a startup that you are, or a business that you're passionate about. And also as a leader saying, well, I'm going to find ways that I'm to bring equity to my staff, because in the post-labor, with post-labor economics upon us, right? Where what is an hour? What is a build hour now, right? As technology moves forward, as our individual leverage actually increases, what does it mean for my team, and what does it mean for my kids, right? What does their career look like? What does their economic output look like? And I guess
kind of that realization around technology has made me very passionate about trying to empower people to own something. And I think it's really cool that you went through that experience.
Oh, absolutely. I feel as an employer, currently I'm an employer of a small team, I feel it is my duty to give my people an opportunity to change their lives.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just to come to work and receive an hourly or a monthly remuneration. It's an opportunity to change their life. And if I'm not doing that, I think I'm failing.
Yeah, for sure. So after that happened, you took some time?
I had a bit of time. I ended up leaving Frucor after the Danone buyout. The rest of the management team got turned over, so I didn't take it personally.
Yeah.
And I spent some time advising some businesses on strategy and their marketing.
Yeah.
And then an opportunity came up to become involved in the Chi business.
Right.
Initially as an advisory person, and that role grew and it ended up being general manager of the business, and then the owners decided that they were uncomfortable owning it, and I made an offer and bought the business probably about 5-6 years ago.
Wow. Okay, so that was around just pre-pandemic kind of.
It was, unfortunately.
Yeah, yep. Right. That, yeah.
But we survived.
Yeah.
We did survive. I'll give it credit for that.
Yeah, that's right. And were they like retiring, or what kind of?
It had been a family-owned business, and the principal owner had passed away, and the family weren't comfortable or adept at owning it, I think would be the nice way of putting it. And it worked out it was best for the business if it changed hands.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, right? Because you look at New Zealand businesses, and the economy is actually very dynamic and actually quite decentralized in nature, because you kind of have a very big, property sector and banking, which is predominantly ran by Australian stakeholders, which means most of the profit of our biggest industry, or one of our largest industries, the profits get shipped off to Australian banks. But outside of that, and I guess at dairy and meat and those exports, you then have a very dynamic SME driven, sole trader driven economy, where now obviously lots of businesses are going to have to be recycled into new ownership or merged or closed, right, over the next 10 years. And interestingly, in New Zealand, we did a business sales report last year for 2025, 5,000 listings, and we have all the data on all the acquisitions. I'll share it with you.
Wow.
And yeah, it seems like some businesses in New Zealand sell for up to a 60% discount, based on kind of that phenomena that you talked about around lack of succession, perhaps, or lack of processes that are known to the business owners or the beneficiaries. And obviously there's a sad part of it happening with farms, right, where you kind of miss your moment to allow the next generation to take over the farm, and then that person becomes 50 odd and they're like, you know what, I don't really want to run a farm. And then the farm changes hands. And I think that you want to hold on to assets. Actually, that's what I think about a lot. It's like, actually, sometimes when you get hold of something, like the opportunity you had with the private equity thing, is you gotta keep hold of it for it to get to the inflection point, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool. So you probably didn't buy into the idea of having to deal with a pandemic when you bought the business.
Far from it. That was the last thing on our mind.
And I heard, because I just had another person that was in the food and beverage space, in the soda space, and he recently sold out as well yesterday on the podcast, and he talked about how, it was really tough in the hospo space, the food and beverage space during the pandemic. Had you experienced anything prior to that to keep you guys good? Did you gain some really interesting experiences in your corporate career that actually helped deal with that, or was that kind of new territory? I think,
in terms of financial and commercial learnings, no, but in terms of pragmatism and philosophical readiness and resilience, I was working on quite a significant launch of Anchor branded milk powder into the Yemen in the early 1990s, and everything was going fantastically until a civil war broke out.
Oh yeah,
and that just stopped everything dead. And all the people we'd engaged with they weren't necessarily stopped dead, but a lot of them were severely compromised. Businesses were destroyed, whole commercial networks were disrupted. People parked tanks on the corners and shelled each other.
Wow.
And that taught me, I suppose, an emotional pragmatism that, some spectacularly bad things can happen that are outside your control, and you've just got to roll with it sometimes.
Yeah.
And that perhaps did prepare me personally for the commercial outcomes of
pandemic,
of COVID.
Yeah, because it was a war of a sorts.
It was sort of, similar sort of disruption and complete lack of control about how things would happen.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting training ground for that. But in terms of the COVID in the business, we went through it quite okay.
Yeah.
For good or bad, we had a very poor position of distribution into the hospitality trade.
Yeah.
So when the hospitality trade stopped dead, we weren't really affected.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's great.
Yeah. So we traded through quite happily, and we didn't print money, but we survived and we paid our bills, and I paid the wages, and we came out ready to go at the end of it.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm obsessed. Not obsessed is the right word. I'm very bullish on this book I read years ago called Thinking in Bets by a lady called Annie Duke, and it's all about disassociating decisions with outcomes. So, especially in founder, business owner world, your identity can often be tied to the thing you're doing in your business, and it can be very tightly coupled at times. And she's a professional poker player. She was a world champion at poker, and she talks about how you're trying to make really good decisions with the information you have. And despite good decisions being made, you can have outcomes that you don't desire. And it's about measuring based on the information you had and the decision you made with the information, rather than measuring for the outcome. And it's really helped me in situations like that, where you're completely out of control and you're making decisions with incomplete information. I actually learned that from esports and gaming, because when you're competing in any sport, you're obviously competing against other people that are going to choose to do their own thing, and they don't, it's not, you go left, they're going to go right. That doesn't happen in human systems, right, where everyone's making independent decisions. And that's kind of the same with crises, wars, pandemics, stuff like that. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, nice.
What do you think has been the biggest learning from actually taking over the business and stuff? Like, how's it stretched you as an individual?
I suppose the biggest learning has been things don't always work out the way you plan or imagine they're going to. So, and that's been a fantastic thing. So I bought, my story for Chi is, I bought this business thinking I could drive a revolution. I thought I was the brand magician.
Okay.
And there wasn't a revolution in it.
Right.
For a variety of reasons, but at the end of the day, there wasn't necessarily a revolution in a 38-year-old brand.
Right.
That everyone goes, wow, I love Chi, but just wasn't quite there. It had spent probably too long in a tight little pigeonhole. So the opportunity which has emerged from that has been a very sometimes systematic and sometimes just guided by what arrived assessment of what we really had in the business.
Yeah.
And recognising we have a fantastic core competence.
Yeah.
And that our job is to redeploy that core competence in a way that is valuable. Rather than trying to just drive a revolution in the same old business. And that's been a fantastic thing. That's stuff that keeps me going every day, is just the excitement and the stimulus of doing this.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So I guess interestingly, what would do you have like a 5-year plan? Like in terms of like your ideal outcome in 5 years, where do you see yourself and the business, and what are some of the dreams associated with that?
So the business at the moment, what we're working on is we're using the core business as a way of funding, as paying the bills. It pays the bills and allows us to operate like a startup.
Right.
So we're redeploying this core competency into a series of independent startups.
So you're venture studioing.
If that's the jargon, yeah, that's what we're doing. So we're starting completely new ideas that will be standalone businesses that can attract their own appropriate ownership, investors, customers, but they draw on our core strengths and capability.
And you can get some scales, you can get some scalability in the back office, and there's all sorts of stuff you can do there.
Shared resources, shared back office. So we can run a series of startups that don't have to carry their own full suite of overheads, for example. So we're working away on that. The 5-year question, the ambition is that within 5 years we will have sold 1 or 2.
Okay.
And I personally may step back, and I'm very enthusiastic to see at least one of my team step in and take the lead.
Right, that's cool.
Both in terms of lead and maybe take the lead in terms of ownership or
at least some ownership. Part of equity.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like a management buyout or something like that. Entrepreneurship, which we discussed earlier, which I think is fantastic, by the way. I love that. And I think that you can design it in really empowering ways. And there's a great hedge fund manager, probably the greatest of all time, called Stanley Druckenmiller. And he says you've got to always have young people around you because they're too dumb not to charge. They haven't got the scars.
Oh, I'd say it's great to have young people around you for slightly different reasons. I think part of it is I'm finding, and this has been my personal leadership epiphany over the last year or two, is that young, clever people, they don't have the baggage. They don't have the cynicism.
That's it.
They haven't been ground down. They haven't had the rough edges ground off them by corporate compliance and corporate game playing. They come in with incredibly open, honest assessments of things and modern, relevant assessments of things. And we've had some fantastic things emerge from just giving young people an opportunity to express themselves and grab a problem or a situation and do it their way. It's been a fantastic thing for a crusty old, many decades experience of a person.
Well, it demonstrates your willingness to learn and willingness to continuously learn and open enough. Shows that, from an ego perspective, right, you're saying, hey, I don't know everything. And maybe that there's some ideas here that haven't been explored from these up-and-comers, right? It's the whole startup thing is that you don't have the technical debt, the baggage, like you mentioned. And for that hedge fund manager, he said, even though you may be in the game longer, you might just, you lose that willingness to execute in that moment when you need to, which comes from kind of touching the hot stove and getting burnt, right? And I had this really interesting experience over holiday where we were camping with some friends, and there's this girl that was on the trip with us, and she wasn't with her family, she was just with our kind of group, and she's homeschooled, kind of dropped out, just doesn't go, is kind of homeschooled, very much not built for the traditional learning ecosystem, I guess, but very smart, very intelligent, high agency. And all she actually wants is a bit of responsibility. She just wants to prove herself and have a little bit of responsibility. So I gave her this small little bit of responsibility. And it's dumb. I was like, hey, if I really like coffee, but I've been making coffee. I'd make coffee for my wife and I every day, and I like coffee. And I was like, but I'm just feeling like I do a lot of our cooking. And I was like, you know what, this trip, I just don't really want to make anything because I do it a lot, and I'm actually just feeling a bit tired myself of providing food and beverages for everyone. Do you want to I'll pay you this amount, but if I want a coffee, I could just ask, I'll text you, and would you mind bringing me one? And the people we were on holiday with didn't like it because I don't know why. But they weren't understanding, and I didn't feel it was worth it to push it. But they weren't understanding that they were basically stamping on her. She was so keen to do it. And the first coffee she made, and she unfortunately only made me one, was so good. She completely looked at, because I first did it, and I was showing, and I was like, this is how I really like it, And it was like I'd made it. And I was like, that is so cool. And I was thinking when I was drinking, I was like, that is so cool. And she was keen and she was a bit nervous, you know, and it just made me realize that young people just really want a little bit of responsibility. And it can be small.
And to be trusted with it.
Yeah. And I just was like, this isn't about setting a precedent for our kids being paid to do chores. This is about someone that's outside of our circle, that is not in a traditional environment, that just wants to actually be a bit beyond her years and wants a little bit of trust. So I just think that kind of certain ecosystems, perhaps sometimes government institutions, if you're there long, kind of academic institutions or in teaching and corporate, you're so worried about signal and
pleasing.
Yeah, pleasing. And it's like it was a real shame, and I'm still a bit annoyed by it because I see someone there that could actually be a phenomenal entrepreneur in the future. Yeah. Okay, so
young people. I've got a great story for you to edit in.
Let's do it.
So the story about a young person shaking us to the core.
Yeah.
We started a new brand, Anthea. You familiar with the Anthea brand? It's a non-alcoholic beverage idea.
Yeah.
And it was our first spin-off this is the first one we've stood up in the market. It's been trading for just under a year now.
Yeah.
And we started work on developing a brand for it. And I, with my decades of experience and having the male ego, was convinced that I could do this. There's nothing I can't do. So I thought I'd start working on designing a completely new brand and all the concepts around it.
Yeah.
And I was working away on it, and one of our young people, I'll use the name Olivia, who was a 23-year-old graduate who had given a break to, she had been looking for a job. We gave her a break, and I was working away on it. She came up beside me and had a look at what was on the screen. And this is a very, very shy, understated, quiet person who doesn't really assert herself very much. She walked in and she had a look at it quietly and she said, Ray, the editor font, you're going to fuck this up. And I thought, oh my God, my first response was bruised ego. And I thought about it for a second or two. I thought, that just took her a mountain of courage to say that to me.
Did she use those words?
She used those words.
Wow.
And I thought for a moment, wow, that took a lot of courage for her to do that. And I thought, you obviously have some beliefs about it. So I said to her, well, would you like to take the reins on this for a bit? And she said, can I? And I said, go for it. And she said, well, what can I do? I said, just take a week or two of your work time on it, fit in your other work, but give it a week, see what you come up with. And a week later, she presented to us her ideas, which were this brand name Anthea, the idea of it, the visuals, and she presented fully formed packaging design, website sketch, brand manual, standards, the whole visual ID and everything for a completely new brand. And everyone took one look at it and went, wow, that's it. And it hasn't changed since then. So we've commercialised it. We've taken it to a variety of people. It's had enormous praise from people who do know. If I can name drop, you might need to edit this one out, you judge. So we went off and had a talk to the team at Trellis Cooper, and they took one look at it and went, wow, we'd love to involve that in our business. Can we serve it at our Christmas functions?
Yeah, cool.
And this is the sort of accolade we've had for the work that this young person did, just given a moment of trust and opportunity. And it's just been the most fantastic thing.
It talks about the culture though as well, that she was comfortable enough to do it.
Possibly, yeah.
That's something where you can go, well, at least they said what they thought, rather than said. And
she felt it was safe enough.
Yeah, which is everything, right? Because you don't want yes people.
Yeah, and this is in spite of my first bristling male ego response. But,
oh right, yeah.
I got through that quite quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. That's fair. That's great. That's awesome. I love that. That's a great story. And does she still work with you?
No, fortunately for Olivia, she gave us another year after that, and then she announced at age 25 she wanted to see the world while she could. So we just congratulated her and wished her well.
Yeah. And you'd probably take it back.
Oh, shit, if the opportunity came and all the rest, of course we'd have it back.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's a great story. So what have you found has been your biggest challenge in getting into the business ownership space? What's the gap between perfection or idealism in a sensible way?
In terms of the entry to ownership, or
No, I would say just in practice, perhaps. I don't know. For me, it's sometimes administrational and system oriented.
Okay, to answer your question, the thing that has probably been the most challenging. And because I bought a business that was already up and running, I bought a going concern that had 28 years of experience under its belt when I bought it. The biggest challenge has been to recognise that if you just continued down the current rut, it may not get where you want to go. Because you get a going concern, it's already got a bit of a groove. It's already established a groove that it's in. And it's about recognising how to pick it up out of that groove and look for the new things. And that perhaps has been one of my personal biggest challenges, because the groove's awfully comfortable.
Yeah, right.
So, figuring out, and it took us getting through COVID and the epiphany that perhaps there wasn't the revolution in the business. And then I consciously sought solutions to that question of, how do we get out of a rut? What are the pathways? What are the methodologies for thinking our way out of a rut? And I got some fantastic help on that. And then working out, then we've worked out what we can do, and we're just getting on with it. And just getting on with it, has been the most exciting. And that's probably, I wouldn't say the easy, but it's the part that doesn't keep me up at night. We're just doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So you kind of almost perhaps came into the business with preconceived notions, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then perhaps maybe the most challenging part is that it's like the grass is greener thing, right?
Oh, and I came into the business thinking that all the job was making the rut bigger and wider and deeper. Right. That was what I thought the job was.
And since then, you've figured out that maybe it looks different. Yeah,
and we'll leave it at that. We'll leave that business in its current groove. It's doing a great job of providing stability, and it gives us the financial certainty of having the bills paid every month while we get on and act like a startup and other things. Yeah. So we're sort of.
Do you think that the reason the company acts like that is because of your early career in your roles that you had, where you were given the opportunity to act like a startup within these larger organizations?
Let's clarify the question.
Yeah, so you went through this kind of apprenticeship model with Watties, and then the roles that you had, like you said, were very focused around innovating, about going for it, about being a bit creative and being in uncertain environments. Do you think that has shaped your approach to being a leader? Oh,
very much so. I'm the first person to challenge whether we're underscoping the potential.
Okay.
My favourite phrase is, it's not a question of whether the glass is half full or half empty. The question is, could the glass be a whole lot bigger?
Okay. Yeah. And I'm
the guy that will look at something and go, we should be thinking this. This is what our ambition should be. I will challenge the scale of the ambition. That's cool. Whether it's it's an optimistic view on things, but it's also recognising potential. And I will see opportunities that perhaps get overlooked or not recognised.
Yeah, that's cool. What do you think about people that spend a long time in stability, great roles? Because I think there's a dichotomy, right? They talk about this K-shaped economy. They talk about how, and this is I've got a bit of a keynote that I did last year at the Financial Wellbeing Institutions Conference for 2025. I did a keynote that is, in essence, that millennials don't realize how good they've got it. Because millennials, I'm a millennial, we talk about how hard it is and how much harder it is on a relative basis. And and that we can't get the assets that we wanted to because we're out of we just missed it. Or maybe we just got in and it's been very expensive for us, right? Those are kind of the two lived experiences of the right way to do it. Therefore, we feel less wealthy as millennials or as a generation. We feel hard done by, perhaps, right? And you can see in the statistics, less people are having kids, et cetera, less people are getting married. And, you know, a very common thing is, well, I don't want to bring kids into a world like this, right? But, you know, interestingly for millennials is actually we were lucky enough to be in a relatively traditional time of upbringing while we were able to also adopt all the technology
as it came forward.
And we're old enough where we've got a little bit of pedigree in corporate and in life. And I actually think that we don't know how good we've got it right now, because there are people that are just entering the workforce that are struggling to be given an opportunity. And then you've got people that were perhaps experienced managers that are now being disrupted too. So I'm a big advocate for I've gone off topic, but big advocate for actually millennials are in a phenomenal position. But to that point is there's a lot of very skilled, experienced people that have been in corporate for a very long time. They might even have some equity behind them and some financial stability. And perhaps now it's many of those people's opportunity to have a bit of a punt, right? Could you talk a little bit about your thought process behind buying the going concern, buying the business, right? And kind of taking a leap into that after having a lot of experience prior?
Well, I think that part of what led the process was an opportunity came up to be involved, and I had always admired this brand. Back in my time in Frucor in the late 90s, we'd looked at buying it, and I'd done the operational due diligence, not the financial due diligence, but the operational due diligence on purchasing it. And I'd sort of fallen in love with the brand then and thought, this is a brand which has enormous capability and bond with consumers. And that lured me in. In terms of, you know, the challenges on the way through, I suppose it's the brutal learnings that if you come from a large organised business, you don't have to worry about the full spectrum of the business challenges. You know, when I grew up in my marketing world, I had done as much finance as I could in my degrees, so that I could understand the money, because most marketers don't understand the money. Yeah, right. So I had a good understanding there, but you know, at the end of the day, I never had to worry about cash as a marketer. Some other person in a corporate treasury would worry about cash. Cash flow. That was it, yeah. I just had to get on and do my job. Never worried about cash. I didn't have to worry about health and safety, real health and safety, corporate risk and governance risks. Never worried about that. And just that full spectrum of things that you have to look after with any business, big or small. Yep. They all come crashing in on you when you're that entrepreneur buying an SME. And I don't know if there should be some preparation process for people doing that to prep you for this.
Or a guild.
Because it's a crashing, horrible reality to realise that, oh my God, you know, cash is actually real. It's one of the biggest issues, and that's probably what keeps you up at night. Is worrying about, God, how are we going to pay the bills this month?
That's right. And you have many dependencies and many different things that fly at you. And
so there's some form of preparation necessary, whether it's a guild that supports transition from, because I think there's an enormous wealth of talent sitting inside big businesses waiting to break out. It's a question of how do you let it break out?
How do you allow that opportunity? Give people a framework, right, to take an opportunity.
And part of that would be helping them learn and recognise that their specialty within the organisation structure is only a little part of what they would be doing. And they need to really multi-skill very quickly.
There's a great guy I read in a book over Christmas. It was about trading, actually. And he said, what was it? His saying was that a mind is like a parachute. It's only good when it's open.
Fantastic.
Which is cool, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. There are some parallels, I guess, with your business and what Berkshire did and what Buffett did. Is he kind of, maybe you wouldn't say it was a mistake, but he bought Berkshire because he was basically annoyed. I don't know if you know the story.
No, I do not.
So basically, the reason that Berkshire Hathaway exists is because the prior owner of Berkshire tried screwing Buffett over for 2/8 of a dollar. And he stubbornly basically started buying up the shares to get control and then to basically whisk this guy off. But then obviously he knew he had a business that was a very, I guess it was a cheap business, right? It was a good opportunity, but it was a business that wasn't the revolution of the future. And then obviously from that, they then had to go through many different pivots. And of course, the old Berkshire Hathaway textiles business has not existed for many decades. Would you say that's kind of a little bit of the experience of like finding something, admiring it, thinking it's really great value, and then realizing that this is the old guard, but we have to rebirth into new things? And
very much so. Yeah. And that's been a big part of my personal journey, is, accepting that what I thought was valuable isn't as valuable as I thought it was.
Yeah.
We can talk about some historical perspectives on that transaction, but we won't go there.
Yeah.
So that's been a big personal challenge, is accepting that, and then the seeking the advice, seeking the pathways and understanding of how we could change that. That's been challenging, because it's been a case of having to listen, and accept different contrary views, and probably the hardest thing for a person with my experience is to admit when you've got things wrong. So accepting that maybe you've got some poor judgments in the background there, and we need to put those aside and find new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And that's been happening over the last couple of years with me and my business and the leadership of the team. It's putting aside some old ways of thinking and doing and adopting some new stuff. Yeah, and it's great. It's exhilarating stuff, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say to someone that's thinking about making a transaction and was kind of prior to the transaction?
I would really challenge whether or not the business future lies in its current rut.
Right.
It may look attractive. It may have a historical track record, but you've really got to. The historical track record in a business really it's of limited relevance. It's all about the future, isn't it? And we get caught up in, the people who facilitate business sales get caught up, I think, in the historical track record. Yeah,
of course. I mean, and obviously the incentives are a bit blurred through that whole process, right? It's really, it's one of those things. Yeah, so it's about, I'd be counselling some of that to be really clear about the history is great, but it's all about, is that the right track or the right path for the future? Yeah. And have you got the wherewithal and the skills and the breadth of mind to seek the right path? Yeah, that's cool. That's probably what I'd counsel someone. Awesome. That's a really great piece of advice. I really, really like that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod, Ray. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure to share. Yeah, thank you so much for taking some time. And I'm going to take the beverages home and put them in the fridge. And cool. Yeah, thanks so much. Done.